So I'm going to talk about the Ethiopia and the context of migration in Ethiopia. And even if it's difficult to talk about it within 12 minutes, I'll try to give you a brief introduction and a brief picture of what's going on in Ethiopia. So when we go through the literature that have been written on migration in Ethiopia, for instance, if we see the ILO report in 2011, it tells us that annually like 20,000 to 25,000 Ethiopian migrants are estimated to migrate all over the globe, particularly to the Gulf states. However, between the fall of 2011 and summer 2012, the number has increased to that of 200,000 female migrants, particularly. And we should note that here, these are only the legal migrants that are reported within the immigration office. So we can easily see the need to study this and the need to explore more on this context in Ethiopia. And with regard to as Dr. Nicola mentioned, with regard to this increase in the number of migrants, the Saudi government has deported a lot of illegal migrants from its country, and as a result, the Ethiopian government has also suspended work-related migration in the fall of 2013 to the Gulf countries until a lasting solution can be found. But the migrants have changed the route to Saudi, so still the migration process is still going on, and we still need to focus on it. So we have been doing research on 3 sites, particularly in Metemma, Hara, and Isabay. And these 3 zones are located in the Amhara regional state, national regional state, and Metemma in particular is located in the North Gondar zone, the northwestern part of Ethiopia, and it's a border town between the Sudan and Ethiopia. And Hara is located in the North Wallo zone, and it has been long used as a gateway to Djibouti and the Middle East, and most of the residents here are Muslims, and they have a tradition of going to the Gulf states as a result of their Islamic tradition as a pilgrimage. And the third one is Isabay, which is totally different from Hara, and it's located near the Blue Nile Falls in the Gondar zone, and it's in Gojam zone, and it's located in the West Gojam zone and almost entirely Christians. So we have chosen these 3 sites because of their difference, even though they are located within the same region. The regional the religious composition, the cultural elements are really different, so it can give us a brief, like a holistic view towards the migration process in this region. So, talking about the background of migrants going to the Gulf states, particularly to Saudi Arabia, these respondents from all these sites have reported that they like to go, or they have been going to Saudi Arabia, and some go to Dubai, Kuwait, and Oman. But recently, this have shifted to Sudan because it's really easy to get a visa from Sudan to Saudi rather than asking from here. And since I have mentioned that the route has been closed, they have been trying to go through Sudan. So nowadays, this destination has changed to Sudan. And talking about who migrates, we have children or adolescents within the age range of 10 to 20 to 90, and girls predominantly go through the contractual agreement, which they call the kafla system, and boys go through the sea because it's really expensive to go legally to Saudi. And the third thing is that, even if we assume that it is the poor who migrate in search of better life, the better off also migrates to Saudi and to other countries, and I'll come back to this, to the reason. And orphans, even if orphans are not supposed to migrate because there is an assumption that they stay within their country to support their family, they are the ones who are migrating because they generally lack resources to pay for, they don't migrate because they don't have the money to pay for the brokers. And as Dr. mentioned, we have a problem of differentiating trafficking and migration and of what we call legal and illegal, because even if this I have mentioned that this year, like between the fall of 2012 and summer 2030, there are around like 220,000 female legal workers going to Saudi. The term legal can be questioned because those are assumed to go through the plane, not through the legal process of the government. The other thing is that adolescents migrate regardless of their marital status. In fact, migration is, in some parts of the region, migration is needed. Marriage is needed for migration because we have a big value for virginity. And so if a girl, they know the risk of this migration process, so if a girl is deflowered on the way by a foreigner, then that is a shame for the family. So she needs to get married before she migrates so that she can be deflowered, how can you put it, like, honorably, yes. And the other thing is that religion, and most of the time we assume that it's Muslims who go to these countries, but Christians are also migrating, and most recently the large number of migrants are really Christians. Talking about factors for migration, even if we cannot sum it up to these points, the general ones that have been mentioned in the research are economic deprivation or poverty and the inequality arising from it, because economic status and social status are more or less the same within this region. So the inequality that arises from it is a factor for people to migrate, particularly girls to migrate, because they are the ones responsible to take care of their own family in the household, and they should they should bring back remittance, or they're responsible to make the family's livelihood better off. And the other thing is conflict with parents, neighbors, or friends not getting along within the community, and also family direct pressure, because as we have mentioned, it's the family who want their own daughters to go to the Middle East. It's a social status marker. The other thing is that they bring up back remittance, and also peer pressure is also there as a factor for migration, because looking at their friends going to these countries and coming back with money or sending back money for their family, these girls are tempted to migrate to these areas. The other thing is the consumption of migration within the community. When we are in Hara, it's not a matter of poverty, because most of the family that are living in this part of Ethiopia, in this part of the region, are better off. But what they told us is that it's almost like getting your master's degree. Migration is equated with a social status, so it's this conception of migration that leads girls to migrate. The other thing is desiring more, and also loss of hope in education and having nowhere to go. Having no access to better off your livelihood, to better off your life. And also we have like 2 national examinations at the grade 8 and 10, and most of the students fail at this stage, and such kind of loss is also another factor for migration. Okay, dividing the migration experience into 4, the pre-departure, the journey, the destination, and also upon return, these migrants face a lot of things. If we start from the pre-departure, the assumption that they take is that they are migrating for a better life, searching for a better life. So they want just to generate income for their family and for themselves. But as a result, they have to drop out of school and they have to get married. As I have told you, in order for a girl to migrate to the Middle East, because they know that there is a risk of sexual abuse, she needs to be deflowered here in her own country by the person that she knows. So marriage is also another thing, another experience. The other thing is that all of them know or heard about the bad stories, the bad experiences that migrants are facing. However, they have what they call 40 days luck. It's your luck that determines what you are going to face in that country. And in particular, they have told us if you go and happens to be successful, it's your luck. If you suffer in the process, it's still your luck, so you might as well try your luck. That's basically what they what they think. Talking about the journey, for those who go illegally, most of as I have told you, the route to these areas, to the Gulf state, have changed through Sudan. So they cross the desert, and girls are vulnerable to physical abuse, sexual harassment, robbery, deaths due to hunger, interest. And what we have to note here is that when we talk about sexual harassment, we are not talking about, we are not including verbal abuse. it's only physical abuse that can be regarded as sexual harassment to these girls. And also, in this journey, I mean, we have also the sea route, so it depends on each situation, and we also have trafficking, organ trafficking, and also blood trafficking. Talking about the destination experiences, most migrants are expected to work like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with no day off, even if they were promised to have a day off within the week and to be paid monthly. They don't have this, and many had their passports confiscated upon arrival, and many were forced to work for multiple families for no extra pay. If I hire an Ethiopian migrant, an Ethiopian domestic worker, then she should also work for my mother, for my sisters, and for any of my relatives or my friends without any extra payment. And I think the court can say a lot about this experience. The day I arrived in Saudi, the husband took me from the airport to their home, and they are expected to work as soon as they arrive on the house without being paid, without being given the time to rest. The other is physical and sexual exploitation, and most of this comes from the physical exploitation comes from the daughters, and the sexual exploitation is mostly from the sons of the employees, and they have been harassed, humiliated, and insulted, and they have noted this in the code that we Ethiopians are not as such considered as human beings to our employers, and they call us Habesh donkey. So I mean, they have been insulted by the daughters of the employers, and even the employers also are involved in such kind of exploitation. And many were horrifically beaten by the women for whom they worked, and some were burned with acid and hot water. And most of the time in Ethiopia you don't use detergents that are really strong to wash clothes or any other things. And when this change in the experience expose them to such kind of being burned by the acid, and this is considered to be one exploitation. The other thing is many were sexually abused by the men or sons of the house where they worked, and they were also denied their salaries. We have a case of a girl who have worked like for 2 years in Saudi, and she has nothing to show off now when she came back. And many were also never paid or were paid only irregularly. Girls are also often isolated physically and socially, and this also gives out to the sexual exploitation that's going on in the house. And religion also plays out in this exploitation, because Christian girls reported the most extreme isolation, and they were overwhelmed by the cultural gulf and harsh treatment, which made them feel unclean and caused them stress. And this cultural shock, I mean, Muslims in Ethiopia, in those 3 sites, don't have the same tradition as that of Saudi, so such cultural shock brings also trauma and stress to these migrants. The other thing is that Ethiopian domestic workers are less valued than those from other countries, and this is because families who employ them are often less well off, and they don't have training. But the migrants from Ethiopia do not have such training of how to handle a house in those areas. And what they were told at the immigration post is that they are going to have a 30-day training about how to handle household, but they are only provided like a 30-minute video on instructions. For instance, not to flirt around with the husband of your employer and as such, and not about what you can face as a result in those areas. And upon return, we can talk about physical disability, trauma, and also being coming back to home with no money, and also with nothing to show off, and also even days sometimes occurs in this migration route. What we can recommend, even if it's really different in different situations, is that raising awareness among parents and as well as among children, adolescent girls, through Girls Club. But the most important thing will be to regulate and widely advertise immigration broker permissible fees and penalize brokers, and also make the journey safe for them by the government officials. And also, since the Ethiopian government is not doing anything in the destination countries, maybe working on that can bring a solution to these girls. Thank you.